And welcome back to Who Would Win, pre-recorded on Thursday for Friday. This woman comes to us from Ruinuchia, who asked the question. I was surprised. I tried to look for someone else. I thought he'd given me this question, or this Who Would Win, but no. Ichigo versus Meliodas from Seven Deadly Sins. Now, I do not read or watch Seven Deadly Sins. That's another one I have to put on my list of things to actually, partake in. But, I do know at least a little bit, and I have the actual, a wiki page up here for abilities and stuff. So I do have a general sense of what Meliodas can do. So bear with me, be kind. Obviously, I'm going by the little I have. But I do know Ichigo pretty much by heart because I love Bleach. Ichigo Kurosaki is a human Soul Reaper, Fullbringer, Hollow, Quincy, Hybrid. He's everything in one pretty much. And Soul Reaper form is what we're obviously be looking at in this fight. Ichigo is one of the strongest characters in the series because he has basically untapped potential, and his growth potential is near limitless. Like, he just keeps getting stronger. And it's because of his hybrid nature and all that, along with, just his attitude and ability to learn. He's actually a master martial arts, master hand combat fighter, because he beat his friend Tatsuki, who was, I believe, second strongest in the whole country in terms of martial arts. He can beat her in a fight. We see him take on 3 lieutenants in the early series with no problem whatsoever. So he is a solid hand-to-hand fighter. But he's also, honestly, a master swordsman, because his Zanpakuto, Zangetsu, is predominantly a melee-type Zanpakuto. It doesn't have an ability, but it's a melee-type Zanpakuto. So he's also a swordsmaster as well. Speed-wise, he can use Flash Step to basically disappear and reappear in near instance. We generally accept that most Flash Step is probably close to light speed, but we just don't know for certain. It's never flat out said. Although, thanks to Death Bell, we do know that Ichigo's Bankai definitely gives him some light speed ability. But he's got enhanced strength, enhanced durability. He's a seasoned veteran, although he's nowhere near as seasoned as, say, some of the other captains. He's a seasoned veteran for a short amount of time on the battlefield. And obviously he wields his Zangetsu on his back, and his smaller Zangetsu, which is a representation of his Quincy powers. He can use Getsuga Tensho, which is a concentrated blast of spiritual energy. Basically a giant slicing laser attack is what it is. But he can also use Getsuga Jujitsu. Getsuga Jujitsu. God. So basically, he uses both of them in a cross. He makes a cross Rasengan. Getsuga Tensho. That does extra damage. That being said, his Bankai Tensu Zangetsu, we never really see what the true form of it does. However, you watch actually looked into the future and said, oh yeah, that Bankai is going to give me a problem. I'm going to destroy it. So his original Bankai, his original Tensu Zangetsu, basically compressed all of his power into a smaller blade, which basically heightened everything else. All of his speed, his strength, his durability, his power. He basically fought at hypersonic speeds, and was able to hit with at a much harder level of power. It compressed everything down, which is why he was able to create after images of himself, move at light speeds. He could block all of Zenbone Zakura Kageyoshi's million blades within the span of only a few seconds. And then you go further on beyond that, he has his hybrid hollow Shinigami form, which he used against Yawatch, which allowed him to use a Getsuga Zero combination, a Grand Ray Getsuga Tensho. Which even Yoak was surprised. He was like, holy crap, I did not see that coming. And I can see every future and change it. It actually injured him, too. Now, granted, he was pretty much 2 hacks at that point for that to even do anything. But yeah, it did injure him. Ichigo's not infallible, though. Ichigo's been beaten many times. Like, against someone who could see and change every possible future, Ichigo was unable to do anything against him. Ichigo was only able to beat him through sheer luck and help from others. But Ichigo is still he's one of my more favored protagonists from Shonen. I do like him a lot. I mean, don't get me wrong. I like Goku. Goku's a decent character. Naruto is always fine. But in terms of the protagonist, like I don't like Luffy that much. If I'm going to be honest, I just don't like One Piece that much. If I'm going to be frank, I don't hate One Piece, just don't like it that much. No, Bleach was probably among my favorites of the big three at the time were Naruto, One Piece, and Bleach. Of them, I actually liked Bleach the most. So Meliodas is actually a demon, if I'm not mistaken. He's not, despite the fact he looks human. Yeah, he's a demon, and he was cursed, but to come back to life over and over again, no matter how many times he died. And he and his love, I believe Elizabeth, were trapped in like an endless loop. Now that curse did eventually get lifted, so I can't. That being said, it also is a matter of reincarnation later down the line. It's not just instantaneous reincarnation, from what I understand, but still. He is basically the strongest character in the series, save for his own dad. That was like the one person who was like stronger than him. Like all members of the Demon Clan, he can manifest his mysterious power of darkness, which he can use in more various shapes for various purposes. I mean, you see it oftentimes. It's like this purple. It's this dark with purple energy radiating off, or purple outlines radiating off of it. Why is purple the color of darkness? I don't know. Maybe just because it looks cool. He's also knowledgeable in demonic enchantments, as well as he's most well known for his skill with his sword and pure physical prowess, as he was the Sin of Wrath. He's also incredible magic abilities, notably virtually immune to magic attacks with his ability Full Counter. Man's combat skills when he's overwhelmed by ancient fairy kings, ancient fairy, giant kings, Golnixia, and Droll simultaneously. The most noteworthy display of outstanding fighting prowess was when Meliodas' emotions, upon becoming serious, could defend himself against his father for a brief period before being subdued. When recovering the power taken from by Merlin, the amount of darkness released from the goddess Amber was enough to blot out the sky, and subsequent aftershocks from Istar could be felt for 100 kilometers away. Before the start of the series, his power was intense enough to destroy the entire kingdom of Denethor. Merlin, feeling his power was too vast and dangerous to control, stole most of it before he could do the same to Kingdom of Lions. Even when the most of his power was taken away, however, he still had a power level of more than 10 times the standard Holy Knight of Lions. With his power returned, he could easily fight and defeat the members of the 10 legendary Ten Commandments, even despite it only being a fraction of his original power during the Holy War. Later on took on all their powers. His power is so great that he couldn't exist in the mortal plane for a certain spell until he got rid of his power, because it was actually affecting the weather in the entire country of Britannia. He's also his full counter allows him to reflect magical attacks aimed at him back at the enemy, but with much greater power. Therefore, the stronger the opponents are, the stronger the rebound comes. A prime drawback, though, is that he cannot initiate attacks himself. He's incapable of reflecting attacks. The opponent does not allow him to read the timing and nature of the attacks. Physical, indirect, continuous attacks can also not be reflected. The Demon King stated the technique is merely an imitation of Chandler's technique, and that the original magical power is something completely different. So Hellblaze uses black flames, not Amaterasu, just black flames. Assault mode is basically at least when his demon powers are at their fullest. Form allows him to access his full power. According to Melisculia, back in the days when Meliodas was in command of the Ten Commandments, even they were in fear of him while they were in this mode. There he has a technique called Kami Chigiri, which cuts his opponent with his sword a total of 1,000 times in an instant, and then combined technique Kami Guyu, 10,000 times in an instant. Trillion Dark launches a barrage of small spears of high concentration of darkness at his opponent. Meliodas slashes multiple opponents several times with his sword in an instant, which should an Ishin. He did have basically the power. He's original wielder of the commandment of love. But obviously he didn't. He lost that after a while. And then he gained them all back, I guess. So we could theoretically look at him with all the commandments. He does wield several swords. And there is actual readings for power levels on him, but that's magical power levels. The commandments, real quick. In terms of powers, what did they do? The commandment of faith. Anyone who shows faithfulness. Go away. Sorry, the site just did that weird thing. Okay. Anyone who shows faithfulness will have their eyes set ablaze. Jeez. And then there's love. Anyone who holds hatred in their heart will be unable to inflict harm on anyone else. Anyone who kills with pacifism, anyone who kills will rapidly have their own time stolen away, quickly aging and dying. Patience apparently is an unknown one. We don't know what patience does, so I can't include that. Pity. Anyone who shows their back to the wielder will become an obedient slave of the king of Demon King, an extension, the commandment holder. Purity. We also don't know what that one did. Repose. Don't know what that one did. Retenance? I don't know what that one is. Anyone who expresses hidden feelings or emotions will be rendered unable to speak. I doubt that's, unless he's smart enough to try to trick someone, I doubt it's gonna work. Anyone who lies or goes back on their word will be petrified into stone. Okay, and that's truth. And selfishness. Anyone who holds desire from another person will lose their memories. Okay, great. Honestly, I'm gonna be flat out honest. Against Ichigo, most of these aren't gonna do anything. Quite frankly, none of those commandments actually are gonna do much. Just because of the nature of Ichigo and the fact that it's a one-on-one fight and all that. Now, maybe Meliodas tries to trick Ichigo into a fight, but the problem is, try to trick Ichigo into, activating one of them, but I really don't think that's going to do anything, unfortunately. So, basically, we have a fight between Meliodas and Ichigo. I can see Ichigo not showing up prior to Meliodas giving up his powers to the demon world, being sent there for some reason or another, and saying, yes, I've been sent to take you out. You're causing too much trouble. It's like, and Meliodas, when he's like going full demon, loses his emotions to some degree. So he just doesn't care about this guy. It's like, you're in my way. You're stopping me from doing what I want to do or what I need to do. And so their fight begins. So both of them most likely, again, I can't speak for Meliodas 100%, but both of them have most likely fashion light speed, reflexes certainly, and straight speed maybe. Ichigo is probably the faster, especially as the series has continued. But Ichigo, I think, is probably as skilled a swordsman, though Meliodas does have more overall experience. See, what this fight is really going to come down to a lot of is there's going to be a lot of melee, certainly, but then Ichigo's going to get some good tension with a full counter, and then he uses full counter. You're just like, what? And then he gets hit by the full counter. Should know Meliodas also has a very enhanced healing factor, too. But he gets hit by the Getsuga Tensho, and that freaking hurts, because it's Ichigo, for God's sake. And he was able to cut Yuok with his Getsuga Tensho. So, and Mel's like, what is it? It's like, Getsuga Tensho! And comes in, Meliodas still grabs it, boom, throws it. Ichigo comes in, cuts him. It's like, yeah, how dare you? And then, Ichigo, okay, I take it back. There is one of the commandments that could work, and that's the one that where you turn your back, you might become the slave. Because he did ultimately become the Demon King. But I don't know here's the thing, I don't know if commandments are infallible, because when you take a character from one universe and put him against a character of another universe, there are things that can alter that. For example, even though Pepe's love worked on a person, that doesn't mean it would work on everyone. For instance, did not work on Mayuri zombies. Same rationale with that commandment is the fact that because the Zanpakuto spirit is its own thing, even though it is you, it's still separate as well. It might be able to get Ichigo out of that whole mindset of being a slave. But the question isn't going to be, power, it isn't going to be skill or anything like that. It's going to be sheer power. That's really what this fight's going to come down to. It's going to be sheer power. Now, we know Meliodas' power was so great that just by existing in the mortal plane, the entire continent of Britannia was having issue with, weather phenomena, things along those lines. That is very impressive. Unfortunately, when you get into Bleach and you get into the hierarchies of Ryatsu, spiritual energy, which is what the Shinigami use, you get to levels of power where you're actually affecting reality. your levels of power are actually to the point where people will just incinerate just by being near you if they're too weak. And we don't see that necessarily. We see a lot of fear, sure, but from what I can tell, we don't see that with the 7 deadly sins. Now, Ichigo isn't quite that strong. Like, Aizen's that strong. We know for a fact Aizen's that strong. Yuak became that strong. I'd imagine Ichibei was that strong. Genro Yusai, Yamamoto, if he really wanted to be, was that strong. Especially when he was going Bankai, he was that strong. Oh, no doubt. Ichigo was definitely in the upper tier of the spiritual pressures, 100%. But does his spiritual pressure, his energy, outmatch or equal Meliodas'? That's really what this is going to come down to, because ultimately, if it's stronger than Meliodas', they're comparable enough in skill with each other. He can't use full counter against Ichigo because Ichigo's not using magic. And Ichigo has his hollow hybrid form as well. They're relatively equal enough in everything else, and most of the commandments aren't going to work on Ichigo, that he's going to be able to, not get me wrong, the truth one, the petrifying one, if he could get Ichigo to tell a lie, or not follow through what I was going to do, which Ichigo says, I'm going to defeat you, then there you go. Unfortunately, he's going to follow through with that regardless. Then yeah, that would work on Ichigo, sure, but he's got to lure him into a circumstance where that happens, and Ichigo's not going to care about that. The question is Ichigo comparable to someone like Meliodas? And quite frankly, I'd say he's well above Meliodas in terms of straight energy, demonic energy versus spiritual pressure, or spiritual power. The reason I say he's well beyond is because really affecting the weather and affecting reality, that's something captains generally have to do. That's why they limit themselves when they're in the real world, because even lieutenants, because they have to limit the effects they have on the world of the living. High level characters like Aizen, Kenpachi, Yamamoto, Ichibei, Yuak, they will start to warp the fabric of reality by just kind of, or, just affect the entire area just by existing. And those aren't even the strongest characters in this. I mean, and that's back in the day, back in the original part of the series, before there were so many character upgrades, so many buffs. Ichigo's power at that point was enough that Ichigo's also could have become the next Soul King if he wasn't careful, which I say that because he did not want to become the next Soul King. I think Ichigo's power output at that point would have been much greater than someone like Meliodas' at that point. And again, I know it sounds weird. It's like, he's defeated angels, he defeated kids. Yes, but that's in the context of his own world. Keep that. The context of each world is very important. And I don't want to get. And I always get someone who says, like, well, if you put him in this world, you took Ichigo and put him in that world, that changes things. No, it doesn't change things up. Ichigo's still using the same type of energy he was using in his own world. That's why I don't get why people's like, well, you took the Dragon Ball team and all this, and this versus Ki doesn't work like that in this way. So it's like, that's not the point. If you want, you got to look at them at their full capabilities. And that's the thing. Now, if you set a certain scenario up, like certain location, that's different. But I'm just using the most realistic scenario I can think of, or most likely scenario. That doesn't change the fact that they are capable of using their full powers, more or less. So I think because Ichigo does, in my opinion, outmatch Meliodas in terms of power output. And they're going to be comparable regardless in terms of the rest of things. And his attacks, Meliodas can't use full counter on. So Meliodas has actually got to block or negate the attacks another way. If he takes hits from Ichigo, they're going to hurt because Ichigo's power is pretty freaking high. I'm going to lean this fight towards Ichigo. That's my take. Now, keep in mind, I say this having never read or watched 7 Deadly Sins. I can only go by the information I can find. So I know for a fact I'm going to get people who disagree with me on this, and you might be very well right. If I suddenly watched and really pay attention to 7 Deadly Sins, I might be like, okay, no, I was wrong. Meliodas within this fight. You know what? I'd be completely fine accepting that. So just keep in mind, this is my opinion based on what I know. And right now, my opinion goes towards Ichigo. But maybe you disagree, and that's fine. Put in the comments below. Tell me who you think would win and why. If you have an idea for who would win, what if, Star Wars Super Magic, what if, Lanticore Pokemon Team, anything I do on the channel, put that in the comments below. I'll get to that at some point. Hit that bell if you want to be notified. I'll catch you folks tomorrow for What If. See you later.